Good afternoon. Welcome to CEC Gurukul live lectures. I am Dr. Pavitra Bharadwaj from Jesus and Mary College, University of Delhi. I teach in the Department of Computer Science. So we have been talking in the previous lecture about e-commerce, and this is going to be the second lecture in the series of e-commerce. So basically in the last lecture, if we take a quick recap, we had looked at what is e-commerce, how is it different from e-business, and what are the different types of e-commerce models which exist. Like we had talked about consumer to business, business to consumer, business to business, business to government, citizen, so on and so forth. So we had discussed, we had prepared a broad premise on e-commerce, a broad understanding on e-commerce. Today we are going to dig in a little bit more, and we are going to talk about a little more advanced topics in the topic of e-commerce. So dear friends, we had studied that basically what is e-commerce. We had seen that e-commerce is the buying and selling of products and services over the internet. But generally speaking, people always say that any kind of commercial activity, any kind of transaction which is happening over the internet or any other kind of electronic media, even over the telephone, if we look at tele shopping or tele buying or all these things, so where internet is not involved, may also come under the aegis of e-commerce. So if we look at the e-commerce from different perspectives, we will see a different kind of understanding, right? So if we look at e-commerce from the perspective of a communication system, then basically it is we can say that it's the delivery of information, products, services and their payments over telephone lines, computer networks or any other kind of electronic means. So basically e-commerce in this case, we will see that any kind of computer network or electronic means where the delivery is seen through any of these channels is known as e-commerce, right? If we look at a different perspective, maybe from a business process perspective. So when you talk about a business process, e-commerce is the application of technology towards the automation of business transactions and workflow, right? So if we are saying that it is how are the businesses taking up the different roles that they have to do, how are the procedures divided. So if there is application of technology, then we say that, oh yes, the business processes are e-enabled, or basically this may come under the purview of e-commerce, right? Then if you see from the perspective of a service provider or from a service perspective, then we say that e-commerce, in that case it becomes a tool which addresses the desire of the firms, consumers, management to cut service costs while improving the quality of goods and increasing the speed of service delivery. So basically from a service perspective, it's an attempt to improve the quality and the speed of the service, the quality of product, speed and the efficiency of the entire system. Any tool which does this is coming as e-commerce. So basically how you can, how the efficiency of the firm can be increased, the overall the speed can be increased, at the same time how you can cut the cost. So all these things from a service perspective, they also come under the domain of e-commerce, right? So now if you talk about an online perspective, then online perspective means the capability of buying and selling products over the internet or any other online service channel. So we have seen that if you look at e-commerce from different perspectives, you see a different kind of understanding. If you look at from inside the business, it's a different way. You are trying to build efficiency in your business, you are trying to cut costs, you are trying to increase the speed. If you look at communication, it's a different kind of understanding, and if you look at from the consumer's point of view, it's an entirely different kind of understanding. So it's very important here to see the different models. Like e-commerce is a general broad term, it's a generic term which we generally say, and from this generic term evolved certain different kinds of business models, right? So what is a business model? Anything actually. Basically a business model is anything, it's a method by which business is being done by a company and how the company is generating revenue and how the company is sustaining itself. That is a business model. So different companies can have different business models, and basically for any business model, in the last lecture we had talked about the different ways in which e-commerce is implemented, like C2B, B2B and all that. Now here we see that there are 6 elements. Basically there are 6 elements in any business model. So, and when you are talking about a business model, you have to look at all these 6 elements. So basically the first and the foremost element of any business is the customer. Who is the business existing for? It is the relationship the company develops with its customers, including how the customers are looking at the value of the products. That is the value proposition of the company towards the customer. What is the customer thinking? What is the value of the product or the goods in the eyes of the customer, right? Then next important element is the business, the products and services which the business is going to offer. So whom the business is going to cater to, then what is the business going to offer, whether it's the products, whether it's the services, what kind of products, what kind of market segment. Then the third important element comes to business process, right? So what is a process? A process is anything which is required to make a transformation, right? How you are going to deliver the products, how you are going to provide the services. So how you are going to convert your input into your output, how you are going to serve the customer is the business process. So basically the business process required to make and deliver the products and services forms the third element of any business model description which we are going to see. Then what are the resources required? It's very important to identify what is available with the company and which will be developed in-house and which will need to be acquired. So what are the resources which are available to us, what needs to be procured from outside, and what are going to be the timelines for when the resources which you want from outside will be available. Then organization, supply chain, including suppliers and business partners, how the goods are going to be delivered to the customer's doorstep. So that includes the supply chain, that is how it is going to be delivered, how the products are going to be delivered to the people. And finally the revenue model, which is very important. By revenue model we mean what are the anticipated costs, how would we meet those costs, what are the sources of financing, and what is the estimated profitability. So by revenues expected we mean what is the financial viability of the product, how feasible is the product in terms of profits, in terms of finances which the company is going to accrue. So basically it is the type of financing which is required, the cost of financing and the sources from which the financing will be required, and then how the profits are going to be made. So basically these are the 6 main important determinants of any business model. So whenever a company is going to develop a business model, it is going to first look at all these 6 models, that is the customers, the processes, the revenues, the supply chain, the resources and the products and services which are going to be supplied by the e-commerce business. So basically when we look at the e-commerce business model, so there are several business models. So the first business model is called the revenue model. So in this, the basic focus of the model or the basic idea or the bottom line or the most significant aspect of creating the model is to describe how the company or the e-commerce project will earn the revenue. That is, what is the revenue making idea about the entire business program and how the financial feasibility will be worked out using the e-commerce business platform. The next is value proposition. So that means the benefits which a company can derive by using e-commerce. What is the value added to the net business worth by making the processes online, by using internet as a medium of marketing or as a medium of selling or as a medium of buying products and services. So whether it is going to add to the value or of the existing goods and services or not. So value proposition becomes a very important idea about this. So if you look at major revenue models, so revenue models can be how you are generating revenues. So generally we see that there are several types of e-commerce revenue models. Nowadays we have a lot of websites which are working on different kinds of revenue models, and their business strategy is entirely focused on that. So the first foremost model for revenue is the sales model. So that's the most common model. By selling of goods and services, any business house, whether it is a physical business house or it is an electronic business house, it is going to make enough revenues, right? Then we have certain models which are only using transaction fees. So like for example, we have payment gateways. So payment gateway is a business sector in which only the transactions which are happening are bringing the revenues to the business house. Then we have subscription based fee based e-commerce business model. So like nowadays we see a lot of entertainment websites are there, like we have Netflix and we have so many others. So how they are working? They are working on subscription. So they are not selling any product or services. What they are selling is, what they are charging is only a subscription to a certain service for a fixed amount of time. So depending on that, they are making their profit shares. Then we have advertising revenue model. So advertising revenue means that the companies are going to make money out of the advertisements that are being posted on the site. So we see nowadays that whenever you work on any kind of public website or any kind of mailing website, you see so many ads are coming around. So what is this? This is the way by which the business is making profits. Then you have affiliate fees, and then there are so many other kinds of revenue sources which e-commerce businesses use to generate finances and to cover the costs and of course to make the profits. So e-commerce business models, basically if we talk about the functions of a business model, what is the business model for? So a business model is basically, it's an articulate a customer value proposition. So what is the value of the business, the service in the eyes of the customer? And then you need to identify a market segment for your product or for your service or for your entire business idea. Then you need to define the venture's specific value chain structure. What is going to be the value chain of your business? How you are going to deliver that value from your doorstep to the customer or to the consumer's doorstep. Then it is important to estimate the cost structure and the profit potential. So this you do it by making use of the resource analysis. So you see what resources are available, what is the cost of each resource, what is the cost of procuring additional resources which are not available, what is the timeline, and then you finally calculate what is the profit making capability of the entire business idea. Then you also need to see how you will place this and how you are going to create that kind of networking linking between the suppliers and the customers. So where exactly is the business idea going to be placed in the market? And then you have to of course make a competitive strategy for your business, because already in the market segment there could be big players, there could be small players, there could be companies which are making good profits, which have a strong hold in the market. So you need to have ideas about how you are going to mitigate that kind of a situation from the competitors, from the people who are going to give you a challenge in that area of business activity. Then you need also, then there are other business models, like you have a revenue model. In revenue model you have so many different models. So here again there is another model which is commonly called as the tendering or the bidding system. Now in the tendering or the bidding system, what happens is, in this the buyer requests the would be sellers to submit their bids, and then the lowest bidder wins. So this is a general model by which the government sector operates. So generally whenever the government wants to procure any kind of services or any kind of product, so they advertise the specifications what they want, and then they ask people to respond to it. So it is actually it is the other way round. Then another model which is common is known as name your own price model. Now name your own price means in which the buyer sets the price and that he or she is willing to pay, and then he invites sellers to supply the good at that price. So basically in this also, this is also used in case of many government and corporate sectors, where the buyer is saying that this is the maximum I can pay for this kind of services. Now whoever is ready to offer those services or those products at that specific price block, they only compete for the bid, otherwise it is not. So basically it is both these models, they work from the buyer side to the supplier side. Instead of the seller to the buyer, the bid is coming from the buyer to the seller side. Then we have another very important common and very interesting business model in the e-commerce sector, that is called the affiliate marketing model. Now in case of affiliate marketing model, it is basically an arrangement. So the marketing partner is there. So affiliate means that there is going to be a partner, any organization or business or even individual could be your partner, and then he refers to the consumers to the selling company's website. So basically there is one person whose job is to send people to a specific company. So basically he becomes your affiliate, he becomes your referrer kind of a thing. So this is the job of the referee website. Like for example, one common example of this is like say Just Dial services. So in Just Dial services, whenever we want a specific service, we will just try to look for that service on Just Dial, and it does nothing but it only refers, it only tells the consumers which are the different options, which are the different companies which are offering, which are the shops, which are the vendors which are offering that good or service, and then people are directed to that site. So this kind of a marketing is known as affiliate or partner organization marketing. Then we have another very interesting kind of marketing business model, which is called word of mouth or viral marketing. Now in this case, customers only promote a product or service to their friends or other people. Like in this case, you are asked to to like a particular page or to share the information on various social media platform about a specific restaurant or about a place of interest which you have visited, and then they give you some points for that, and then there are different kinds of schemes in that. So here this is called word of mouth, that publicity by the consumers or by your own clients or your own customers. So this is one kind of business model. Then of course we have the small and medium enterprises which follow the group purchasing business model. So group purchasing means that the quantity or aggregated purchasing that enables groups of purchasers to obtain a discount price on the products purchased. So basically they actually form a conglomerate, and then that conglomerate does a collective negotiation, and therefore they are able to obtain the goods or services at a much lower prices as would a single company. So instead of going as individually, they do the bargaining as a collective or as a group. So therefore their negotiation power increases and they get better deals as compared to the singular or as compared to individual deals. Then of course another very important business model is the online group purchasing organization. So this is also called as the e-co-ops. So in this case, these are also group purchasing only, but these have been we say co-ops is coming from the word cooperatives. So cooperatives means that they form a group, and these groups, they work online. They don't work on physical level, but they work online, and then they do the group negotiations. Then we have customization is another kind of business model, that is you are trying to create specific products, or you are trying to create specific delivery models or service delivery models which are according to the specific needs of the buyers. As per the buyer specification, goods and services are being created. This is very common service delivery model in case of the software industry. We know that customized or ready to make, ready to use, or this kind of softwares are very much used, and small and medium software companies, they are thriving on this customized software for specific clients which they are making. So customization is also an important business model, that you take a product and then you change it, you develop it, you edit it, you manage it, you manipulate it to serve the specific requirements of a particular business client. So this is one more type of business model, that is the customization business model. Then we also have nowadays, with the advent of so much of social networking and so much of networking which is taking place on these platforms and business networking, we have social networks. Now social networks are also becoming an important platform and an important way in which e-commerce businesses are being done. So you have websites that connect people with specified interests, and they provide free services such as photo presentations, blogging, email services, etc. And these are basically business oriented networks. These are social networks whose primary objective is to facilitate business only. So basically, more than relationship and the other dimensions of the social networks, these are more business centric, business oriented, where interested people who are interested in any specific kind of transactions will only be a part of those social networking sites. Then we also see the digital enterprise is there. Now in case of digital enterprise, a new business model is used, and basically a digital enterprise is any company which in a fundamental way has accomplished one or more of the three basic objectives. So what are the three basic objectives? First is to reach the consumers more effectively, to engage with the consumers more effectively, then you boost employee productivity, and the third is to improve operating efficiency of your business. So it uses converged communication and computing technology in a way that improves the business processes. So all the three, digital enterprise will use all these three objectives, any of these three objectives rather, and it will use technology as a background to achieve these objectives. So therefore, because looking at these objectives, it makes very clear that these can easily be achieved by using an e-commerce based business platform, because the reach and engagement with the customers definitely increases when you have an internet based business model. Then also the productivity and efficiency, effectiveness of the job of the workers also increases, and overall efficiency of the institution or of the organization will also be increased manifold when you are using technology and communication systems in the right way. Then we also see another concept in this case, that is called the corporate portal. In case of corporate portal, basically it is a major gateway through which employees, business partners and public can enter into a corporate website. So corporate portal is something which gives a lot more services to the associates of the business, like the employees or the external partners, and even to the general public, to engage with the business house and to take services of that website in a more professional way, in a more sophisticated manner, and to take advantage of a large number of more services than you would get only using a simple website. Now we will talk about a very important aspect of e-commerce, that is, why has e-commerce gained so much popularity, why has it become so important. So before we come to the advantages or the good points about e-commerce, it is important to note that when internet was opened to public in the early 1990s, it was thought that e-commerce and e-business is going to be the most important service which will be utilized by the general users in that time. But to one surprise, we saw that only after 2000s has this area or this domain picked up so well. Now what is the reason? Why did e-commerce lie so slain till that time? And that was only because of one reason, that is the availability of secure protocols. So only when the in security at the e-commerce websites was built up, it was incorporated as a secure system, only then the e-commerce became so popular. So if we look at the advantages of an e-commerce system, the first and the foremost advantage of e-commerce system is that it builds efficiency. That is, these models, they increase business efficiencies, and not just in one way but in several ways. For example, the first important thing is that it will reduce the search cost for online customers. So it is very easy for the customer to look at the products catalogs and to find out the correct product for the correct specifications that he or she needs, and different search criterions are available. So according to that, very specific and pinpointed search can be taken up. That it also increases transactional efficiency of the business house and security and speed. So, we know that whenever a transaction is happening over the internet, it is almost happening instantaneously. So, therefore, it is hassle free and it allows a very secure and fast way of undertaking the transaction. Then a very unique feature of e-commerce is that it allows reverse marketing or reverse auction. So, we have already seen what is reverse marketing or reverse auction. That is, the buyer, instead of the seller, the buyer is proposing what he wants to buy and what are the specifications that the buyer wants to buy, and then he or she is getting the bids from the seller. So, actually it is the other way. Instead of the seller going to the buyer is opening the platform for the sellers to come and advertise their goods, to come and sell their goods. Then also, because inventory costs are reduced and distribution costs are reduced. So, it reduces a large amount of costs of the business house, because so much of the transactions and so much of the business is now being done in a virtual world. So, therefore, lot of these costs can be compensated. Even hiring and firing costs are contained to a very large extent. Then if we look at cross selling, another very important advantage is cross selling. That is, companies can increase their value creation by their own products pushing new products to current customers based on their last purchases. So, companies, they know what is the preference of the product, what is the most searched product by a specific customer, and then they will try to push in more and more similar products in that range to promote the customers' buying behavior, to note the buying behavior and then to harp on that behavior by advertising the specific kind of product. Then e-commerce businesses, they also work on complementaries. That is, a company will it will sell one product along with the other. Very commonly we have seen that when you buy one product on an e-commerce website or an e-portal or an e-shopping site, you see that this is frequently bought together with this specific product. So, then it is actually trying to encourage, it is actually trying to ask the consumer to buy another product which is complementary to this particular product. So, instead of just selling one product to the customer, the e-commerce business or the business house is trying to attach another set of or another another product to that specific product. Then we also see a phenomena of customer lock-in. So, if you see that in case of e-commerce websites, they keep the customer engaged and they make the customer, they try to build customer loyalty and making the customer dependent on the company for much longer time. So, they will not let the customer go loose and they will not let the customer go to any kind of competitor, and they will keep the customer with them by announcing different kind of schemes or by keeping the customer engaged through different mechanisms that the companies develop. Then the very important aspect of e-commerce websites is customer satisfaction. That is how the customers are accommodated by the service offerings in the e-commerce website. That is how the customers, the feedback is important, how they are taking with the customers' complaints, how they are dealing with them, and how they are applying or giving services to the customers to build maximum satisfaction and to build maximum customer quality feedback. Of course, speed or the time is very important or very crucial aspect in case of e-commerce, because we have seen that advances in communication networks and internet technologies and the different networks which have developed, they allow the transactions to be done almost at the same time. So, you do not even realize. And of course, if we look at the availability, these services are available from anywhere, anytime, any hour of the day. So, all the services, all the products are at your doorstep, whatever the time, day or night, people can shop. So, therefore, because of all these things, the e-commerce business model has become one of the most successful ways and one of the most successful phenomenon which has occurred in the business world in the recent past. Of course, there are a few disadvantages also. like one major disadvantage which is discussed by the people is that you can, of course you can browse the products, but you don't get the physical feel. So sometimes the customers, they feel it difficult to make an accurate decision because you don't really see the product in hand. So there is a virtual effect of that. Then there are some customers who are a little wary about the privacy and security concerns of the e-commerce websites. They are worried about how the financial transactions will be done. So therefore they are a little unwilling to accept e-commerce, and they are more comfortable using the conventional ways of doing and taking business, of buying or selling of goods and services. So basically this is one of the major disadvantage of the e-commerce business models. So if you are talking about the aspect of how security is important and why some people think that e-commerce security is not as robust as the security in the physical systems. So it becomes imperative now to discuss about the e-commerce security aspect, or what is it that makes people wary about the security aspect of the e-commerce websites. So we know that computers as a whole, or information systems as a whole, they are vulnerable to a large number of threats. But because in e-commerce it is involving a lot of financial information and a lot of money is being transacted over the internet, therefore e-commerce becomes a very critical area in which security aspects of information systems have to be kept in place and kept to be very tight. So basically if we see different issues which are faced by e-commerce e-commerce websites, is firstly is the computer security, that is how you protect your assets from unauthorized access, use, alteration or destruction. So this is the domain of computer security. Then of course you have some tangible protection devices also, which you need to put in for physical security, like you will have very strong doors, you will have windows, you will have locks, electronic locks, biometrics locks and so on and so forth. Then you also need to have some non-physical intangible ways of protection of your assets, which is called as the logical security. So this is the security of your software through different kinds of passwords, through different kinds of layers of authorization and security. Then what are the objects, basically what are the threats? Any act or object that poses a danger to the computer assets is called as the threat in case of the computer information security jargon. So a threat is anything could be a threat which may lead to the destruction of an asset, or which will make the asset vulnerable to some kind of harm or some kind of damage. So that is known as a threat. So if you look at risk now, basically what is risk? Risk is the probability that something bad which is going to happen will happen. How much is the probability, right? So basically in companies, they have a very systematic way of looking at risks and of managing those risks and of mitigating those risks. So different companies, they adopt different ways in which risk management can be done. So basically the first measure or the first risk which any company sees is called the countermeasure. So basically this recognizes, reduces or eliminates a threat. What is the threat? You need to understand first what is the threat, then you need to see how you can reduce or how you can minimize the impact of that threat, and then how you can eliminate that particular threat. Then you have a threat could be like an eavesdropper, right? Any person or any device which can listen in or copy your internet transmissions, or which can pick up data while it is being transmitted on the network. So that is a risk, right? Then you have different kinds of hackers and crackers are there. So these are basically people. Hackers and crackers are those people who use the knowledge of computer science and who use the knowledge about programming, and they write programs and manipulate the technologies to obtain unauthorized access to computers and networks. So these are one very big major risk which is there. So if we look at this diagram, you can see that this is a risk management model and how companies, they basically view the risk. So if you see, they evaluate the risk on the impact, which is low impact, that is the cost of damage which will be done if the risk incurs. So, you have some low impact risk and you have high impact risk, and then there are some risks which are high probability risk which are more likely to occur, then there are some low probability risks. So, if you see, when you see that the impact is also high and the probability is also high. So, what is the strategy which is used by the management? The strategy is to prevent the risk, and when the impact is low, that is the damage cost is low, but the chances that the particular risk will occur or the chances that the particular damage will occur, then it is easy to contain and control the risk, because it is high probability. So, you know that it will occur. So, you will take some measures of containing and controlling it. But if you talk about low probability risk which may or may not occur, so if it is a low impact thing, then you say okay, let it be, let us ignore it, whether the risk will occur or not also is not so. So, you should not waste much resources on making strategies to manage that kind of risk. But yes, if the impact is high, although the probability is low, but the impact is high, then the company managers, they prepare some insurance, they create some kind of a backup plan, that if the risk occurs, even if the low probability, if the risk occurs, then the damage which is done by the risk should be able to be covered through some kind of a plan. So, they will take some insurance, or they will try to minimize the damage, because it is high probability, high impact. So, they will see that it should be managed. So, depending upon the chances of occurrence of the particular phenomenon and the amount of damage that the phenomenon is going to cause, companies, they prepare their strategies to manage that kind of a risk, all kind of risks that way. So, basically if we look at computer security classifications, so there are different terms which are important, there are different layers of security that we talk about. So, the first type of security term that is used is known as secrecy. Now, secrecy means protecting against unauthorized data disclosure and ensuring the authenticity of a data source. So, you know that the data is secret, that is it is not to be disclosed in front of everybody. So, the authenticity is important, from where you are getting the data, and then protecting that from any kind of person who is not authorized to view or to use that data. Integrity refers to basically unauthorized data modification, that is the data should be correct at all times. In databases, generally we see that we have different constraints which can be enforced to make sure that the data is correct and it is integrated. Integrity means that the data is correct in its state at all times within the existence. Then necessity refers to providing data, preventing delays of data or denials, that is all the time the computers must be on and they should be able to provide data at all times. So, security policies are basically integrated into the company. So, these are basically written statement, and this is a very vital document in any kind of company, especially the e-commerce portals, because they will ensure that all transactions which are happening, they are happening under a secure environment, because not just the protection is not just required for the website itself, but also for its customers, because once any mishap happens or any kind of threat occurs in the system, then it is definitely going to wear away the lot of customers. So, therefore, security policy is publicized very well, and it's made sure that everybody knows how the company is going to protect the assets. So, first thing in a security policy or in this document which is mentioned is that what are the assets which are to be protected and why are these assets need to be protected. So, assets could be physical assets, these could be network, these could be computers, or these could be intangible assets like information, data, programs, any kind of copyright information. Then who is responsible? Setting accountabilities is also very important when you are talking about security system, because in case of any failure there should be persons who are accountable for the failure which had occurred. And then which are the behaviors which are acceptable. So, each company may have its own very specific kind of security policy behaviors which are created and which are publicized, so that all employees, all stakeholders of the company, they know which behaviors are acceptable and which are not acceptable in this case. So, if we talk about the first step, when a company is talking about the security policy, the first step to be discussed in creating a security policy is to create a list of assets which are to be protected, and to also create a simultaneous list of threats from which the assets need to be protected. So, you need to create a list of your assets and the lists of vulnerabilities or the threats which need to be listed. So, basically this is a security policy document, and then this document is prepared and it is well publicized, so that each person in the company is aware of what are the do's and don'ts within the company. So, when we talk about e-commerce security, basically there are some concepts which we also borrow from computer security only, and these become very important here, because this is an internet based connection, internet based platform, and therefore it is more susceptible to risks and threats than any kind of standalone system. So, when we talk about this, what are the important parameters or what are the important security conditions that need to be ensured at all times? So, the first is integrity, then we have non-repudiation, authenticity, confidentiality, privacy and availability. So, a lot of these terms may appear familiar to us, but let us look at them with the perspective of an e-commerce security system. So, basically if we talk about these security systems, so any security policy must have authentication, access control, secrecy, data integrity and audits. So, these are the integrity security, which is an integrated element of the security system, right. So, if you talk about client computers, then we talk about the stateless connections. Each transmission of the information is independent. In case of client computers, we should always maintain that we are not going to keep the state of the client computers, because once the transaction is over, the connection is broken and there is no link between the client system. Then we have session cookies, which exist until the web client ends the connection. So, these will only exist till the time the client is in connection with them. Then we have some other types of cookies which are stored on the client computer indefinitely. So, basically what are cookies? When we talk about cookies, cookies are small files which are created on the client's computer by the websites. Now, these could be different type, for different purposes cookies may be created, but one simple example could be just to keep a track of the behavior of the online behavior of the client. Some websites, they will store that information, that is what are the general patterns in which the searches are carried on by the client, or what are the different kinds of products that the customer looks for online, so that the next time this information can be used to guide the customer or to take the customer towards the site of the website. Then we have different kinds of, in this also we have different kinds of cookies, like we have first party cookies, which are actually created by the website server itself. The server of the website will itself create those cookies on the client computer. Then there are some cookies which are created by some other site other than the site which is visited. So, the cookie is created by a third party site, therefore, these are known as third party cookies. Then we have web bugs also. So, web bugs, basically this is also a third party website places on the site's web page and this is a tiny graphic that is created on the website by the other third party website. So, if we talk about some active content, so active content basically means it is any program which is embedded into the web page and that can cause any action to occur. So, most of the times we have seen that scripting languages are a part of the HTML tags or HTML element of the website. When a website is created, the most common way of creating a website is using the HTML tag, and in HTML tag sometimes scripts are put in. Scripts may not be harmful all the time. Scripts are also used for legitimate purposes, like for client side text validation, input validation, or performing simple computation at the client's end. So therefore, script languages, they provide the commands which are executed. And then we also have applets. In case of Java, we say Java applets. So these are also small application programs which also run at the client's end in the browser. So this is known as active content. So basically these are embedded in the web pages, and then they will cause some action to occur. So many a times it is seen that these scripts and the applets, they may have some malicious intent, or they may have some malicious content. So therefore it is important to secure your website against all this kind of active content. So basically in this we also see that different kinds of other malwares are also seen. Like we see there are Trojan horses. Now Trojan horses are very commonly used. Basically what is a Trojan horse? A Trojan horse is a program which will appear to be harmless and which will appear to do something, some other function on your program, but actually it is hidden, and it is the malicious code is hidden under the garb of a rather harmless code, and then when you install the code, the Trojan horse is installed in your way, and this masks the true purpose. So therefore Trojan horses are very, very fatal for computers, and therefore even in e-commerce sites Trojan horses are given specific attention, because these may not just harm the client's computer, but they may also be very detrimental for the others. So we have seen a large number of Trojan horse attacks have happened in the recent past. We always keep reading about these attacks which are taking place on a large number of e-shopping sites in different parts of the world. Then there are another kind of malware which is a very big security threat, which is known as the zombies. Now zombies are also programs which will launch attacks on other computers. They will take control of your computer, of a specific computer, and then they will start attacking the other computer. So attacks can be very difficult to trace. These attacks can be very difficult to trace. So when we are talking about security, we need to understand that all the concepts of security, that is integrity, non-repudiation, authentication, authorization, these need to be completely checked, these need to be completely ensured before the website has been opened for any kind of transaction. So if you talk about non-repudiation, now in case of non-repudiation, it is basically that you can't deny the result of your action, that is you are making people accountable, you are passing on the responsibility. So the non-repudiation is a way in which the user ID and password which has been given, it becomes a tool of ensuring that the person who is using these will not later on say that I was not using it. Then authorization is a way of ensuring that within the system, the user who is logging in within the system, who is authorized to use that system to a certain capacity. So the roles of each user has been fixed, and the user can perform only those activities which he or she has been authorized to. For authentication, of course, we know that there are multiple channels, multiple ways in which the identity of a user can be authenticated. Of course, there is user ID, password. Nowadays we are also talking and looking at biometric authentication of identities. So basically it is establishing the identity of a authorized, of a legitimate user. So in case of e-commerce websites, it is very important that the users are made aware of how important their identity is, and that they should not share the details of their identity with any other kind of parties. Now if you talk about other kinds of softwares which may play a very important role in security of e-commerce websites, then we will talk about viruses. Of course, viruses are very common terms which most of us are already aware of. So they attach, virus is basically something which does not have its own independence, like we say Trojan horse or zombies. So these are independent programs, but virus will always need a host program to be activated. So viruses are specifically designed keeping those host programs in mind. For example, if a virus has been designed to attack the text editing software, so then the host program has to be there in order for the virus to be activated. Then in this case we also look at macro viruses. Now what is a macro? Macro is basically a small program which is, which executes on its own, like we have seen in case of Excel or in many other cases also we use macros quite often. So when it's a recordable way in which you record a specific series of actions in a macro, and then at a click of the button all those steps will be taken on automatically, right. So it's a small program. So this macro can also be a macro virus, and when it is embedded in a file and the user erroneously clicks on the start button, so automatically all the actions which have been coded in the macro will be executed, will start executing. Then we also look at antivirus software. So antivirus softwares are a way in which these threats can be mitigated, in the way these threats can be protected. So basically these are there to detect and to clean the system of all kinds of malware that we have discussed so far. So we shall be talking about other concepts in e-commerce in the following lectures. Till then, thank you.